Good afternoon, and welcome to this presentation. This is a live presentation conducted by Legal Aid of North Carolina. We're a nonprofit law firm, and my name is Marian Blackburn. I'm a paralegal here with Legal Aid. Welcome. We're going to be talking about flood recovery today. This is water damage, mold, and how you can rebuild after a disaster. This presentation is a bit detailed, so it will be available to you after this presentation if you'd like to go through it in more detail and to get the specifics, because some of it is very detailed. The bottom line is that it's always good to have a professional with you to assist you, to support you, but those professionals aren't always available, especially during and immediately after a disaster. Of course, we're in hurricane season. Hurricane season started June 1st, and it does continue through November, but floods can happen anytime, especially as development occurs. This changes waterways and causes water not to have customary areas where it may have once gone into floodways and flood paths. Now these are sometimes parking lots. So floods can happen anytime. So who is Legal Aid and what do we do? We are a statewide nonprofit law firm. We do provide legal services in civil matters. And if you feel that you have a civil matter and you'd like to find out if we can help you, we recommend that you contact our office and determine if you are eligible for our services. If you were affected by Hurricane Florence and feel that you have questions about recovery programs or your ability to qualify for recovery aid, you can contact our office and again, learn if you're eligible for our programs and for assistance with your long-term recovery. The materials in this presentation are just for information and education, and this is not to be considered legal advice. If you feel that you have a legal matter, we recommend that you contact us and learn if you're eligible for our services, or contact a private attorney if you need to speak with one about your situation. So we've got water destruction. How does water destruction happen? Water can enter a home in several ways. It can come in through a roof. If a tree falls on your house, you have a hole in your roof and it's a storm, water can get in that way. There can be flash floods where during a rain event, a storm event, a lot of water comes down very quickly. Next thing you know, you look and you have water in your home, several inches up to several feet. Usually this water recedes quickly. There's also flooding that comes after a storm when all the waterways, the rivers, the creeks, they gradually rise and flow east. And this water is often very dirty. It may have effluent in it from animal agriculture. It may have sewage backed up in it, and this water may linger in your house. Many communities in Eastern North Carolina have experienced devastating floods during Hurricane Florence, and this recovery continues. How then is the best way to deal with flooding and the risk of flooding? It's best to go ahead and try to get started now to avoid flooding. Learn if you are in a flood zone and if you can purchase or if you need to purchase flood insurance. What is a flood zone? This is an area where water is likely to occur. You may have heard about a 100 or a 500-year floodplain. These designations describe how often you are at risk of flooding. Do you have a 1% chance of flooding in a year, a 5% chance of flooding in a year? That's roughly what this refers to if your home's going to flood every 100 years or every 500 years. But because of development, these zones are changing, and sometimes maps are not our best source. But go to a map and learn if you're in a flood zone, and if you are, try to purchase flood insurance. Now, if you have to leave, a storm is coming, you can go ahead and try to move items to a higher place in your home. You can prepare sandbags that can keep water maybe from reaching your home. These can be very effective. You may have to evacuate. And if you do have to evacuate, go ahead and prepare simple things to take with you. There may not be much time. Of course, your health and safety and the health and safety of your family, your companion animals, these are very important. You want to go ahead and have those important documents. If you didn't already put them in a lockbox prior, which is a good idea, try to grab those, your identification, your driver's license, any prescriptions, contact information. Go ahead and get your prescriptions, get your family members' prescriptions. Grab those essential items that you'll need to take care of your family. If you have companion animals, get carriers for them, get their medication and their food. So you may need to evacuate, and this is how you can prepare. A storm comes, maybe you were in your home, maybe you were outside of your home. You go back and you realize water has been in your home, or you saw the water come in your home. It may have only been a few inches, or your home may have been entirely underwater. Once the water's drained away, and if you evacuated and once you're allowed back, you can go ahead and begin to survey the damage. You're going to want to start from the outside, take some pictures from the outside. Of course, safety first. Don't touch any loose wires, avoid loose wires. You want to be careful if you smell a gas smell, that could be a gas leak. A home that was underwater may have rotted floors. So you have to be very careful if you're going to enter that home. Go ahead and contact your insurance company immediately. Go ahead and start taking pictures. If you're able to enter, take pictures inside. A note is that you can go ahead and start removing these wet and moldy items. You don't have to wait for your claims adjuster. Now here's some hazards. And of course, top of the list is mold. There's also lead, asbestos, carbon monoxide, gas, again, if you smell it, chemicals. You can get cut or punctured if there's something hanging, falling, and then there is electricity. Now, the good news is that most homes, even those that were wet or severely damaged, can be repaired. The issue for repair is if your home's experienced structural damage. In that case, it may need to be demolished. Other than that, there is a good possibility that you can restore your home. Let's look at the steps. These are the basics. This is what you always need to remember is you want to protect yourself. Protect yourself from harm. You want to wear your mask. And these have been in short supply. There are more available now. You're covering. And you want to make sure that whatever you do, you allow items to dry thoroughly. This is often more important than any treatments you may do. Just allow items to dry thoroughly. And bleach isn't always as important as you may think it is. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry. And if you're able, when you're rebuilding, to use environmentally sustainable materials, that's always best. Make your home more sustainable and more able to withstand a storm. So preparation. Again, wear your protective clothing, your goggles, your earplugs, and remember that floors may be slick, so be very careful when you enter. If you may need to shut off your electricity altogether. You probably are going to want an electrical inspection before you enter your home. And again, going back to the basics, if there's a lot of damage, a lot of water, it may be better to have a professional with you from the start. Why might this not be possible? In a storm, there are a lot of people affected and there are too few professionals to help them. So you may find that there's just not someone who can help you, and you may need to begin some of these steps on your own. You may even need to set up an entirely new electricity system and shut off the old one. You're going to need water and a working bathroom. And you're going to need tools such as a shovel. You may need a pump, and you may need to use a generator. Now, with the generator, make sure your generator is always outside. Never use a generator inside. The fumes are toxic. Here's some items that you're going to need. First aid kit, something to clean up your eyes, and a list of emergency phone numbers and some drinking water. So how are you going to work? Now that you've decided that you want to get started by yourself, maybe you have a professional with you and you're going to assist. Maybe you have a volunteer agency that's come in. Maybe you have friends or family. Maybe the damage isn't that bad. Maybe your insurance adjuster has said, go ahead and start. Your situation that you want to go ahead and get started to restore your home. First thing you want to do is create a path, because this just is going to allow you to enter and leave your home. You may be carrying items. Other people may be entering and leaving your home. Put down plywood, have a way in and out. Also create a clean room. This is a place where you can change clothes when you're finished working. You also want to make sure that your home is protected. There's a tarp, maybe that tree that fell on your roof and you've got the hole. Get a tarp up so you don't experience further damage. And again, you're going to need a working bathroom. You're going to need drinking water. A note about dried mud. If you had to leave for several days, you come back and there's dried mud. Oddly enough, to remove this dry mud, you can actually use water. It's not what you would think of the first thing, but you can use water to remove this mud. The situation, again, is that there could be, if you had a home underwater that experienced a very serious event where standing water was there with maybe sewer in it or runoff from an animal agriculture operation, or there are other kind of filth that may be in the water. This is potentially very dangerous, especially for a respiratory system. So you want to make sure you have the mask. You want to make sure you have the gloves and the boots, and also watch out for puncture wounds. So make sure you have your tetanus booster. So you want to get the water out, and you want to move things into bags and out to the curb. Make sure your appliances are wired shut. So this is likely to be a very personal moment when you realize that you have to clean out your contents, and that some of them may be ruined, or a lot or all of them may be ruined. So what are your first steps? The first thing you do is go ahead and start with the floors. If your carpet is wet, pull it up. If you have wall-to-wall carpet, you're going to need to cut that out. And then you can remove to closets, shelves, and storage areas and remove those items. The good news is if you have non-porous items, they can often be saved and used later. If you clean them thoroughly, non-porous items like ceramics, pots, pans. But in general, do not try to save porous items that are moldy and wet, such as fabrics, paper, and any item that absorbs water. Historic items like heirlooms and photographs, sometimes these can be saved, and there are special steps you can take. Some items should just be thrown away, especially if they smell funny or bad and have been underwater. For instance, carpet padding, rugs, upholstered furniture, microwave ovens, window air conditioners, and other electronic appliances. Computers, you can remove that hard disk for security purposes. Papers and books, and any food item, even a canned food item that's been in contact with flood waters, go ahead and toss that food item. Cabinets and doors, you may have to just pull them out and replace them, or they may be able to be saved. You want to look for things like warping, rotting. If you have historic items such as a chandelier that maybe was in your grandmother's house, a lamp that has special meaning for you, these items can often be restored. So you want to pull them out. Glass items, glassware that have maybe been handed down to you, you can pull those out, keep them safe, and those can be cleaned later. There may be doorknobs, other valued possessions. In some cases, you're going to need then to just start pulling wood off the wall. If you've got wood trim, floorboards, and then you're going to work on the drywall. Now, when you get to this point in restoring and repairing your home, it's important to be methodic and to be reasonable and rational, and not just get a sledgehammer and start, trying to tear down. You want to start high and move low. So you want to have a ladder and perhaps someone with you, as in this image, and you're going to want to have on a hard hat, and you're going to want to systematically remove those ceiling tiles. It's important to note that homes that were built before 1980 may have asbestos floor tiles. These should be left in place. Don't touch them. If they need to be removed, it's important to call in a professional, because asbestos fibers are very, very harmful. There are cases where these are, for whatever reason, are disturbed, are broken apart. And if that happens, it's better if they are wet, because the fibers do not circulate when they're wet, and the danger of spreading is lowered. Don't break them apart. And if these tiles are moved, it's important to vacuum afterward with a HEPA filter. But again, as with all of these processes, if damage is severe, if there are any questions about safety or the degree of damage, and if a professional is available, a professional should be called in, and especially if there's a matter of asbestos. There is a guide which you'll find in the links to removing asbestos, which was made available by the U.S. government, and make sure that you have the proper filter if you're ever working with asbestos containing material. So we've got the drywall off, maybe the ceiling tiles, either they're staying or they've had to be removed. We've gotten the wood trim, maybe the cabinets are in place, maybe they had to be removed. If you had severe flooding and all of the home the walls and wood flooring and such has been removed, then you're going to want to do an inspection of the structure of the home. You're going to want to look at the studs, the joists, and the load-bearing walls. Now, if you have non-porous flooring, as long as it did not come apart from the subfloor, it can remain in place. However, if anything is warped, if water got beneath that vinyl, it's going to have to be pulled up because there is a risk of mold. And again, be careful with any asbestos tiles, or if you get into insulation, there's fibers, there's mud, there's mold, there's very, very thick particulate matter that can get in these items that can cause respiratory illness, especially when there is a filth from sewer or animal operations and just the thick mud that can be there. So, before rebuilding, now that all of this has been inspected and cleaned, and maybe you've had volunteers with you as you've pulled out the contents of your house, and you're at a point now where everything has been cleaned and everything that can be restored or could be left in place has been left in place. Before you rebuild, again, take these steps to make sure that everything is cleaned. Disinfection is not as important as you may think. As long as you have cleaned and done the physical cleaning, you may or may not choose to use a fungicidal coating. And whatever you do, just don't mix household cleaning chemicals. For instance, ammonia and bleach can create a toxic gas. Borate salts. Some people use borate salts or borax. You can treat wood with the borax. It is corrosive, but it does kill insects and it prevents against wood rot. So if there's an area that may be exposed to flooding again, or that's in a very humid environment, you may choose to treat with borax. Now, fungicidal coatings are not necessarily recommended, except when a resident is going to be living there who is very vulnerable to respiratory illnesses, maybe someone with an immunocompromised system. Here's some examples of fungicidal coatings. Again, the most important thing is to get the area clean, and then a fungicidal coating may be applied. But if you apply this kind of sealant coating without cleaning first, it's not going to do any good because those toxins are just going to come back. They're going to come through that coating. So cleaning is the most important step. So are there some things that can be restored? Absolutely. Wood furnishings, if they're not warped or rotted, you can just clean them, get the mold off, and then allow it to air dry. Upholstered furniture, you may have to pull off the fabric and the batting, the cushioning in there, but you may be able to treat the wood. In general, clothing and anything fabric is going to have to be thrown away unless it can be washed and washed with bleach or a color-safe bleach. If you have heirlooms or items that are very important to you, be careful not to cause further harm cleaning them. Save them, talk with a professional, and just be careful with delicate items. In some cases, they can even be put in the dishwasher, but again, be careful with these items because you don't want to cause more damage, especially if you've retained some things that were very meaningful for you. You want to be sure to hold on to them. Electric appliances. These, if they've only been moderately exposed to water, again, you had that hole in your roof, water came in, and there's a possibility that the electric appliance didn't get that damaged. The most important thing is to leave it alone and let it dry thoroughly before you even try to plug it into a wall plug. So let it dry thoroughly before you try to plug it in. And even though these items are porous and very fragile, it is possible to save or to salvage paper, photos, and other heirlooms, other porous heirlooms. And what you do with those is you can take a book or papers, you put them in a zippered bag, a Ziploc bag, and then you put them in your freezer and you freeze them, and then the water will actually fall off as ice. And they can sometimes be restored in that way. If you have artwork, don't try to use water or any chemicals, just vacuum it. That's the best approach for any kind of artwork. Mold, we talk a lot about mold, and here's why. It's kind of ugly stuff, and you can see the pictures, it's often visible. And if we clean, we think we've removed it, but as you see in this picture, there's little bitty spores that can remain. They can remain in the air, they can remain on fabric. This is why porous items, it's so important to wash them thoroughly and perhaps just go ahead and throw them away. it must be completely removed. And last, just a few things to remember, kind of going back to sum up everything about restoring your home after a flood or water damage. The most important thing is to your own personal safety and the safety of those people that you're with. So you want to always have your protective gear, your protective mask, your hard hat, your goggles, your boots, gloves. Know that there are all kinds of hazards that you can face. Make sure that your home didn't move off the foundation. Make sure there are no loose wires. If you need to shut off the electricity, set up new wiring, have an electricity professional with you. Note that turning off a wall switch does not mean that you are safe. Don't touch any hanging or loose wires indoors or out. And last, always keep your generator outside and make sure that the cords are not in water. So here are some of the resources, and these will be in the comments. You can learn more detail about everything we've talked about. This has been just a really quick overview. If you find yourself in this situation where you are doing your own home restoration, you can consult some of these guides. And again, we are Legal Aid of North Carolina. We're very glad that you were able to join us for this presentation. We invite you, if you have a civil matter that you may need legal assistance with, you may feel free to contact us and learn if you're eligible for our services. If you suffered damage or flooding during Hurricane Florence and you are concerned about your long-term recovery, we invite you to contact us. And this presentation will be available after the end of this live for you to consult and review the links. Thank you very much for being here and have a good afternoon.